Today we will cover the Whitaker family, a story that's hard to forget. Maybe you've seen that infamous video, the one where the interviewer approaches a group of people in rural West Virginia. One man barks like a dog, another can't speak, and yet there's a strong sense of familiarity and trust between them. At first glance, it's shocking. Some even called it disturbing. But once you understand the full picture, it becomes more than a curiosity. It's a story about isolation, generational trauma, and what happens when people slip through the cracks of society. But let's rewind. In 2020, filmmaker and photographer Leida uploaded a video titled Inbred Family, the Whitakers. It was part of his Soft White Underbelly project, a documentary-style series that focuses on people living on the margins of society. He's interviewed addicts, women of the street, ex-cons, and people most of us never hear from. When Mark visited the small town of Odd, West Virginia, yes, that's the real name, he was introduced to the Whittaker family. It was obvious they had been isolated for generations. Their house was tucked deep into the Appalachian hills, almost like it was hiding from the world. And then, we meet the family. There's Ray, who communicates mainly through grunts and barks, but is clearly happy to see visitors. Then there's Lorene and Timmy, who are more verbal but show signs of developmental disabilities. And Betty, the most coherent of the bunch, who serves almost like the family's spokesperson. When Mark first encountered them, the family was hesitant, even defensive, understandably so. They'd been mocked for years. Locals warned Mark not to go there. They're dangerous, some said. Others just called them weird or not right. But what Mark found was the opposite. A family that was misunderstood, neglected, but deeply human. Over time, they warmed up to him. In subsequent visits, they even looked forward to seeing him, hugging him, smiling, showing genuine warmth. Now here's where the internet gets things twisted. A lot of people jump to conclusions. They're products of incest, they said. And yes, there are signs that inbreeding may have occurred, but it's more complex than that. According to interviews and local lore, the Whitakers are not the result of immediate incest like parent-child or sibling relationships. Instead, it's the result of generations of isolated intermarriage within a small gene pool, like cousins marrying cousins. Common in some rural and isolated communities where options were limited. In fact, the Whitakers are far from the only family like this in Appalachia. Due to poverty, isolation, and lack of education, it wasn't uncommon for families to intermarry in order to maintain land, resources, or simply because there weren't many choices nearby. This is where things get scientific and a little dark. Inbreeding increases the chances of recessive genetic disorders showing up. If both parents carry a copy of a mutated gene, the child has a much higher chance of being affected. Over generations, this can lead to cognitive disabilities, physical deformities, and mental illness, all of which are visible in some of the Whittaker family members. But that doesn't make them monsters. It makes them victims of biology, of circumstance, and perhaps most of all, of neglect. The Whittakers live in what can best be described as poverty beyond most people's comprehension. The house is dilapidated. There's no plumbing. Most of their food comes from donations. Their clothes are tattered, and they have little access to health care. What's worse is how they've been treated by society. They've been laughed at, photographed without permission, and called horrific names online. But through all that, they've shown kindness, even loyalty. Betty once said in an interview, "We ain't bad people." And she's right. Mark didn't just make a video and vanish. He kept coming back. He started helping them out, bringing clothes, food, even raising GoFundMe campaigns to repair their home and provide essentials. And in doing so, he exposed a harsh truth. Families like the Whittakers exist all over America, not just in West Virginia, but in neighborhoods across the country where poverty, addiction, and isolation trap people for generations. This isn't just a story about inbreeding. It's a story about forgotten people. And it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How do we treat people who are different? Why are some families left behind? And what does it mean to truly be civilized? At first glance, the Whitakers might scare you. But if you look deeper, beyond the surface, past the internet memes and shock videos, you see something else. Resilience, love, family, and most of all, humanity. Mark Leida didn't just document them, he gave them a voice. And maybe, just maybe, the world is finally listening. If this gave you chills, or made you think differently, that's the point. Truth is often stranger than fiction. And sometimes, the scariest stories aren't monsters hiding in the woods. They're people we've ignored for far too long.